What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News. Today, I want to discuss this Saturday's UFC on ABC, Rozenstruik versus Almeida. But, guys, before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. All right, guys, getting right into it. At the top, we got Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Jailton Almeida in the heavyweight division. An extremely exciting matchup where you have two guys, Almeida getting his first real big true test in the heavyweight division where he's going to be shown to the masses, I guess, like the real fans. This is his first main event, so this is a lot for Almeida. And Rozenstruik, who's been in the UFC for quite some time now, who has had quite the story where he was like that super hot prospect, kind of like how Almeida is now. Started out like 3-0, where he had really, really phenomenal knockout victories over against guys like Alan Crowder, Andrei Arlovski. And the fight that he had against Alistair Overeem was where things started to get a little tricky with him. Yeah, he won the fight via knockout like the last second of the fight. I think it was 4 minutes, 56 seconds of the fifth round. And it was a fight where it was where he was just getting pieced up, couldn't pull the trigger. He was losing basically every minute of that fight until he landed that bomb at the very end of the fifth round where he took Overeem out. With 4 seconds left too, he landed a bomb and it was pretty devastating and it split Overeem's lip open. But I thought it was a little weird for them to stop it like that because the way that Overeem was just dominating that fight, there's 4 seconds left. So I was a little salty with the ending of that fight, but this is kind of where the career of Rozenstruik kind of started to get a little weird. He had the next fight with Ngannou, where Ngannou just said, fuck technique, and just absolutely murdered him. And where Rozenstruik, then he had the victory against Junior Dos Santos. Then he got dominated by Cyril Gane. He knocked out Augusto Sakai, but who hasn't lately? Then he had the 2 losses back-to-back to Curtis Blades, and then he got knocked out by Alexander Volkov. Now he's coming off of the win to Chris Daukaus, to where, it shows where if he can land, if he can get that solid shot early on, he usually tends to go good for him. But when things start to get a little tricky, he gets very gun-shy, he hesitates, it seems like the moment kind of gets to him, he just doesn't really pull the trigger, and that seemed to go to Rozenstruik's detriment more often than not. And going against a guy like Jailton Almeida, who, God, he's a physical specimen at heavyweight, isn't he? Just looks just solid, like not an ounce of body fat on the guy. Looks phenomenal at heavyweight. He's able to get the fight to the ground. He's made very good guys look pretty average. He's coming off of that win against Shamil Abdurakhimov. And then also he had the win against Parker Porter where, he just gets the fight to the ground and he just dominates these dudes. He's like an anaconda. He's like a boa constrictor on the ground. And I think that if he can survive the early onslaught of Rozenstruik, and if he can get the fight to the ground, I think it's going to be a wrap from there on, right? But he's got to be able to kind of get through that early onslaught. And I think that's going to be the big factor in this main event here, guys, I think is going to be if Rozenstruik goes out there swinging or not. If Rozenstruik is going to be the gun-shy guy that he has been, if he shows up, if he doesn't really show up, per se, I think Almeida is going to take advantage of that and make it a very quick outing. I really think that if he gets it to the ground, it's going to be over if he can get it down early, right? But Rozenstruik, if he can land, he has that one-shot ability to put dudes out, and he's shown that against guys like Alan Crowder, Chris Daukaus, Augusto Sakai. He really has that one-touch knockout power. But against those high-level guys who are able to change levels, make it dirty, kind of take away that confidence, give him multiple looks, he seemed to struggle. So Almeida, he definitely, if he can go out there and get the fight to the ground, it can be a very long night for Rozenstruik, right? Next up in the light heavyweight division, in the co-main event, we got Anthony Smith taking on Johnny Walker, where Anthony Smith has had a phenomenal UFC career. I love this matchup for both guys because Johnny Walker, he showed a little bit of inconsistency ever since he took that knockout loss to Corey Anderson a few years ago. He had the shoulder injury after he had that celebration victory a few years back, so he kind of hasn't been the same guy. But lately, he's shown that he's more well-rounded than he's ever been. With the submission victory over Kutalaba, and most recently, I think he had that knockout victory over Paul Craig, right? So, before that, he had the knockout loss to Jamal Hill. He had the decision loss to Thiago Santos, where he just seemed to not be able to be as wild or pull the trigger. He tried to be somebody who he normally isn't, and I think that kind of showed to his detriment. And since then, he's kind of like a controlled wild man. As much as that is like an oxymoron. Like he's been able to show that like he can kind of control his chaos a little bit, pick his shots a little better, but still be explosive, still be a little bit unpredictable. And he showed that against Paul Craig and Cutelaba, where he's definitely been well-rounded. He can take a shot still. That knockout loss to Jamal Hill just shows how good Jamal Hill fucking is, right? And why he is the champ right now. So that fight has aged well, I think, for both fighters. As Jamal Hill became champion, I think it also showed just like how good he is, the way he was able to put out a guy like Johnny Walker. Because Johnny Walker, since that knockout, has been able to rattle off these two really nice victories since then. But going against a guy like Anthony Smith, who is very smart, he can make it difficult for guys. He likes to make it dirty. He likes to get the fight to the ground. His jiu-jitsu is very fucking good. But where Anthony Smith struggles a lot is against guys who are bigger and stronger than him, guys who are able to bully him. Anthony Smith has shown that the times where he's lost, he's been bullied. John Jones, Thiago Santos, Alexander Rakic. Who else was it? Magomed Ankalaev, right? He destroyed Anthony Smith's fucking ankle early on, and Anthony just wasn't really able to get it going. But in the fights that he hasn't been able to get the W, he's been bullied. Glover Teixeira was looking really good for him until it wasn't. That was like a really weird fight. He just got cracked, and that was just kind of it for him. He just couldn't get his shit back together, and he just got fucking bludgeoned for a long time. A fight that should have been ended way before it was. That was actually a brutal fight to watch. But his fight against Rakic, his fight against Ankalaev, his fight against John Jones, he showed that if they're able to bully him, he kind of just seems to like accept that position. It's kind of weird, like live to fight another day almost. But it really all depends. So, I mean, if Anthony Smith can show and go out there that he can't be bullied, I'd really like to see that. But he's really struggled against guys who are a lot bigger than him. So I think that this is a very big test for Anthony Smith and the rest of his career moving forward. Because if he can't get through Johnny Walker, you're going to see Anthony Smith kind of in the stepping stone era. And I hate to see that because I've been a big fan of Anthony Smith for a very long time. Ever since he head kicked Andrew Sanchez back in like 2017. Like I've been a big fan of Anthony Smith. So I'm going to be rooting for him in this fight for sure. But this is kind of like my brain versus my heart here, where I think Johnny Walker, he's just so big, he's so explosive, he's so strong. I think that he might be able to just bully Anthony Smith probably for 3 rounds. That's what I think is what we're going to happen. But Anthony Smith has got the fight IQ, he can make it dirty, and he's got some slick jiu-jitsu. So I could definitely see some crazy shit happening on the ground as well. So I'm really excited for this matchup. I think Anthony Smith, I want him to pull it off, but I think Johnny Walker's just a little bit too big, a little bit too dangerous. Moving forward, we got D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez taking on the undefeated prospect Ian Gary in a really exciting matchup, right? You got D-Rod who, he's coming off the losses to Neil Magny, and I think he had the win against Li Jing Liang, but a fight that he didn't look very good in, a fight that I thought he lost, and a lot of the masses thought he lost. So ever since he had that victory against Kevin Lee, where he dominated Kevin Lee, he looked good against Mike Perry, but ever since he had his hand surgery, he kind of hasn't really looked like the same guy, and he hasn't really been consistent as well either. So I think him kind of being a little older, he's 36, 37 now, going against a young, hungry guy like Ian Gary, who is looking better and better every time he goes out there, right? Every single time I feel like, oh, well, this might be it for Ian Gary, he goes out there and fucking pulls out the dub, and he's looked better every single time. And I think Ian's heart and determination, he's tall. I think he's like 6'3", so he's tall for the weight class. But you got D-Rod, who's thick for the weight class. It's a really nice matchup. You got slick boxing, a guy who's kind of fought against a lot of high-level dudes in D-Rod, so this is a big test for Ian Gary. So if Ian Gary can get through Daniel Rodriguez, you're going to be seeing him going against guys like Neil Magny, those top 10 dudes, top 12 dudes in the welterweight division. And D-Rod, he's kind of has his back against the wall against a guy like Ian Gary, where it almost seems like they're trying to set him up to lose. Like if you can't get through Ian, you're going to be fighting against a guy like Matt Brown, Court McGee, who I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes here next. So D-Rod's kind of in this spot where if he wants to make a run for it, he's got to make a statement here against Ian Gary here this weekend. And Ian, this is his first big shot against a big name and a dangerous fighter like Daniel Rodriguez. I think he's got some good heart. I think if he can keep his chin tucked a little bit better, I think that we can see him having a little bit more success. He leaves his chin out there to be hit a little bit more, and D-Rod, he's got some slick boxing. He's got heavy hands. He can find the mark there against Ian. So it's a dangerous fight for both guys for sure. But if D-Rod, if he can go out there, be confident, be sharp, use good head movement, probably some good wrestling defense to keep Ian off of him a little bit. If he can stay sharp and find the mark, and if he can go out there and just keep his chin tucked, march forward, and kind of make things scrappy for Daniel, we can definitely see a really good fight here in the welterweight division. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen in this fight moving forward as well. Next, we got Carlos Alberg taking on Ior Potiera. I think Ior, he's just recently retired Shogun. That was a weird fucking fight. He didn't look that very good against a guy who was aged and just, you could tell, had one foot out the door. Going against a guy like Carlos Alberg, who is a very slick, powerful, precise kickboxer who fights over there with Izzy, Volkanovski, Daniel Hooker over there in New Zealand. So he's got a killer team with him. Alberg, he's a slick kickboxer, southpaw guy. I think it's going to be a really long night for Ihor, and I think that Carlos, if he can just really stay active and put it together, because I know he's in his 30s now, he can be a very dangerous guy in the light heavyweight division. If he can just really put together that stuff, work on his defense a little better. But he's just looked better every time that he's gone out there. I hate to use that word so often in this, but he's just looked sharper. He's just been able to pick his shots better. He's coming off, his fight against Nikolai Negumeranu, I butcher that dude's name every time I say it, but he looked so good in the way that because Nikolai, he was looking good in his own right, and for him to capitalize on that and get the KO victory against him, very impressive, right? So I think Carlos Alberg, I think if he can pick his shots well, stay patient, keep his distance, we can see a KO victory pretty easily. I don't really see Ihor going that far in the light heavyweight division within the UFC. I'm not much of a hater. What I saw with him against Shogun, I saw a guy who just wasn't that sharp, forced a lot of things, and I think that going against these upper echelon guys, these young, hungry dudes, he's going to pay for it. That's really all I have to say about that. I think Carlos is going to get the first or second round knockout victory. Moving forward for the opening fight for the main card on ABC, we got Alex Morono taking on Tim Means. I love Alex, the great white Morono. That dude's so solid. He's such an underrated guy at welterweight. Yeah, he's coming off the KO loss to Santiago Ponzinibbio, but that was a fight where he was really going out there, and he had Pons on skates most of that fight. And if he hadn't gotten caught at the end of that third round there, he was skating to a victory. But he got caught by a powerful guy in Ponzinibbio, and yeah, he did get the L, but he was looking good, really good, until he wasn't. And before that, he had a really solid victory over Matthew Semmelsberger. Who else was it? David Zawada, Donald Cerrone, Mickey Gall. The guys looked good against a lot of really good, solid guys. He makes really good, solid guys look very average. He looked good against Anthony Pettis, but he got caught with some shots. Chaos Williams fucking murdered him, but Chaos has just ridiculous power. But he's got wins over Zach Otto, Song Kanan, what's his fucking name? Max Griffin. Alex Morono has put on a very solid, quiet resume within the UFC, and he's a guy, don't fucking sleep on him. And going against Tim Means, who's at the end of his career, 38, 39 years old. He got finished by Kevin Holland. Tim, he's a tough dude. He's a tough dude, but he's way past his prime at this point. He's coming off he's coming off 2 losses in a row. He got finished by Kevin Holland. He got beat by Max Griffin. He's just past his prime. And if we saw Tim Means maybe 3-4 years ago, this fight would definitely be a lot more even. But I just see Alex Morono just being sharp, being precise. He's the younger guy. But Tim, he's big. He's big for the weight class. He definitely has that advantage. But I just see Alex. He's just a solid dude. He's a good coach. He's got a great fight IQ. I see him going out there and just putting on a really solid performance against a very solid veteran in Tim Means. Moving to the prelims, guys, we got Matt Brown taking on Court McGee, and almost a retirement fight. If they both show out really good, I guess we can see them continuing moving forward. But we got Matt Brown, who's just a legend, future UFC Hall of Famer. I get so excited on this shit, guys. 42 years old. What was that last fight that he had? Brian Barberina. That's right. He lost split decision, where he's just tough as shit, man. And he's too tough for his own good. I mean, he had that knockout win over Diego Lima where he just had him just right in the button. But he's at the end of his prime. But going against a guy like Court McGee, who's also at the end of his prime, this really could be a pretty cool fight where Court's going to want to get this to the ground. He's going to want to use his wrestling. He's going to want to get Matt on his back. Matt's going to want to obviously keep the distance, use his elbows, make it dirty, use his knees, use the clinch, and make Court pay for his level changes. That's Matt's key to victory in this fight. If he can get a really nice victory, we could see him moving, maybe fighting a Brian Battle, who we'll be talking about next. Same thing with Court McGee. He's coming off of that loss to Jeremiah Wells, where just Jeremiah, I mean, he's just, man, that dude's got some power, man. He's got some slick boxing. That guy throws with some heat. And Court paid for it in that fight, and Court's a little older now. He's been around for a long time. I was a sophomore in high school when he won the Ultimate Fighter. I'm 29 years old now, so it just shows how long he's been with the UFC. He's an elite veteran. He's got great fight IQ. He knows how to get it to the ground. He stays hungry. He's got a lot to fight for. His sobriety is a good story for my, he's a big inspiration for my sobriety as well. So Court McGee, I'm a big fan of that guy. And I think if he can get it to the ground and not let Matt get the good shots off him, because Matt knows Matt's a veteran, man. He knows how to get these guys. He knows how to pick his shots. So Court's got to be smart, get the fight to the ground, and be the crusher, and make it a long, grinding fight. That's Court's kind of key to victory in this matchup. I love this fight, a UFC Legends fight at the welterweight division. We very well could see both guys retiring at the end of the fight. Next up, we got Carl Williams making his UFC debut against Chase Sherman, the Shermanator. Chase Sherman, man, I've been watching this guy for about 5-6 years now. I'm a fan of the fucking dude. Win or lose, I'm never gonna not root for Chase Sherman. A Chase Sherman fight week is always a good fight week. Guy always goes out there and tries his best to put on a good performance. Doesn't always go his way. He's kind of on a bit of a losing streak at the moment. I think he's on a losing streak at the moment. He's had a lot of because he had the fight against Jared Vandera, that's right. But he's lost 5 of his last 6. He's gone out there, fought a lot of short notice fights. He's a company guy. He goes out there, doesn't say no to a fucking fight. You gotta respect the dude. But sometimes when he goes out there and he doesn't get that quick knockout, you see kind of his confidence fade a little bit. And that's kind of where you see he loses these fights. He's just like, he loses focus, maybe confidence. He's like, fuck, I can't get this guy. And he kind of just like, all right. Almost like he just doesn't want to be there anymore. And I don't doubt Shane. I'm not Shane Chase. I want him to pick his shots a little better. He kind of just goes out there and doesn't pick his shots the best if he doesn't get it early. The first 3 minutes is like the most dangerous Chase Sherman you're going to get. And after that, he kind of just slowly fades and he kind of loses control and he kind of tends to get bullied the rest of his fights. But going against a guy like Carl Williams, I don't know too much about Carl. I'm really excited to see what he can do in this matchup. But I think going against a guy like Chase Sherman, it might be a lot for him because Chase has a lot of experience, fought a lot of guys. He's been around for a long time. So it's a very big, tough test for a guy like Carl Williams going against a solid veteran like Chase Sherman in the heavyweight division. Moving next, we got Cody Stamann taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade in the bantamweight division. But Cody Stamann, who's just a solid veteran, he's been around for a long time, going against Douglas de Silva. He's also been around for a long time. I mean, Douglas, he's 37 years old. He's 28-5. He's coming off of that loss to Saeed, where he actually, he put on a good performance against Saeed. Before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak. So, I mean, he goes out there, he tries to fight, puts on good performances. But against a guy like Cody Stamann, who's very solid, he's a bit of a point fighter, has a lot of decisions, but he's on a 2-fight win streak. But he got finished by Saeed. But MMA math doesn't really work. But any time that Cody's gone out there and fought a top 15 guy, it hasn't really gone his way. That's a tough one to go. That's a really tough one. I like both fighters. I definitely can see both guys pushing the pace. Cody's going to want to use his wrestling, where I see Silva kind of just going out there and put out a really... because he's a dynamic striker. So Cody's going to have to definitely hit the clinch, get the fight to the ground. That's going to be his path to victory. For Douglas de Silva, he's going to have to really go out there, pick his shots, be dynamic, land heavy shots, make Cody pay for his takedowns. That's kind of going to be Douglas's key to victory here. Next up, we got Natan Levy against Pete Rodriguez. Two awesome strikers. Natan Levy, he's like this karate guy. He's got really cool striking. The only thing that I don't really like about him is that he really forces it. He doesn't really let the fight come to him. If he were to just let the fight come to him, I think that we could see some really cool highlight reel knockouts by that guy. He's got cool kickboxing, great kicks, dynamic. He's very dynamic, but he he just seems to force the action a little bit. And if he can just find those shots a little better, let the fight come to him, let it slow down a little bit, we can see a lot of success by Natan Levy. And against a guy like Pete Rodriguez, right? Pete, who's shown phenomenal power in his UFC career. He goes out there to end fights. He gets reckless. He got knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena. Sorry, guys, my throat's a little dry. But he's coming off of that win against Mike Jackson, where he damn near murdered Mike Jackson, right? Sorry, guys. Damn near murdered Mike Jackson. And Pete just goes out there. He goes out there to finish. All of his fights don't last long, win or lose. He's got the one loss to Jack, but he's really gone out there and marched guys down. And against a guy like Natan Levy, who can make him pay, this is where the fight can come to Natan, and something can open up for him to get a real nice highlight knockout. But Pete, if he can land against Natan, he can definitely get that one. He's got that one shot power. So this is a sleeper fight for me. I love this fight. Either guy can get the knockout victory because Pete leaves a lot of openings for himself, and Natan kind of forces things upon himself as well. You got two guys who are just very reckless, like per se, and that can lead to a firework ending. And either guy can get the knockout. I can't wait to see. I like both fighters. I wish success on both dudes. I'm not going to pick a victory on this one, but I love the matchup. Next up, we got Kim Ji-yeon going against Mandy Bohm. Don't know much about this at all, so I'm not even going to speak on it. But Kim, she's had some solid. I think she's lost like 6 in a row, right? Yeah, no, she's lost 5 of her last 6. She hasn't really been a high-level fighter. She lost to Grasso. She lost to Molly McCann. Lost to Priscilla Cachoeira. Lost to Jocelyn Edwards. I mean, obviously, if she loses this fight, she's got to be cut, right? All decisions. Kind of weird. I don't know. Don't know much about Mandy Bohm. She doesn't really have anything here. So can't really say much in this fight. But next up, we got Brian Battle taking on Gabe Green in the welterweight division. Brian Battle, who won the Ultimate Fighter, had some really nice victories after winning the Ultimate Fighter. He knocked out Takashi Sato. He knocked out Tresean Gore, or he beat Tresean Gore. And he went up. Who was that dude that he fought? I forgot the guy's name, but he fought this dude who fucking dominated him for 3 rounds. Got the fight to the ground, and Brian was just outmatched. Like, it was like a 30-25. Like, and no shitting on Brian, because Brian's a really good striker. He's big for the weight class. He's very dangerous. He knows how to end fights, obviously. Slick boxing, slick kickboxing, good combinations. Obviously has to work on his wrestling a little bit, but he was fighting a killer in his last fight. I forgot the guy's name, but he was an absolute killer. Going against a guy like Gabe Green, where his last fight where he lost to Ian Gary. He's also good in his own right. Kind of in the same position as Brian Battles, is kind of right there, top 30, top 25 in the welterweight division. He's had some good wins. He beat Philip Rowe, but his 2 losses are to, ironically, Ian Gary and D-Rod. So, I mean, the loser of this fight probably gets cut, or maybe has one more fight. This is a good fight for Brian Battle to definitely make a statement. Both guys, actually. I mean, both guys are known within the UFC. These guys need to make a statement to kind of move forward. Brian Battle, I mean, he had a very, very lopsided loss in his last fight, so he really has to go out there and make a statement to show he's still here. He's still dynamic. Those first few fights weren't a fluke. I don't think he was a fluke. I think Brian's very dangerous, but I also think Gabe Green is very dangerous. He has a habit of kind of making good guys don't look as good. But should be a dirty fight. I'm pretty excited for this one. And we got Jessica Rose Clark taking on Tamara Lisboa. I don't know anything about Tamara, but Jessica Rose Clark, she's been in the UFC for a while, super veteran, 35 years old. Yeah, she's in a 2-fight losing streak. She's been armbarred twice in a row. But she's still dangerous. She's got the wins over Jocelyn Edwards, Paige Van Zandt, Becca Walling. She goes out there. She's definitely dangerous. The fight against Jessica Ai was a good fight. Yeah, she lost. Jessica, she goes out there. She loves to fight. She's going to make it difficult for anybody. So I think that this could be a very good fight for Lisboa. She can definitely go out there if she can get a victory over a big name like Jessica Rose Clark. That could definitely catapult her into a really good opponent like Jocelyn Edwards next. That could be very good for her. Obviously, I'm always going to root for Jessica Rose Clark. I'm a big fan of her. I've always watched her fights. I'm always rooting for her. Always a big fan. So I'm going to go for Jessica Rose Clark in this matchup. Guys, also, just want to make a statement kind of why I've been a little MIA for the few people who do watch my show. My manager got fired at the hotel I work at. I've had to pull in some crazy 12-hour days at work, 6 days a week. It's been a little wild. Haven't had time for really much of anything besides sleep and work. I've also had a lot of other weird things going on in my personal life that it's like a Jerry Springer shit. Not really with me directly, but kind of. But it's just been a lot of stuff going on lately, and I just really haven't had the time to focus on the show in the way that I want to do. So I haven't really been making videos. So I might be a little rusty too coming in. I've been really want to get out here and kind of put out some more work for you guys because I love talking MMA. I love that the few listeners that I do have. So guys, thank you for your patience with me. I am doing my best to kind of stay more consistent. Things have changed at work again to where I think things might be a little bit more normal for myself, to where I'm not playing as manager at the moment. But so far, I'm back. So fight fans, let's fucking go. UFC on ABC, Rozenstruik versus Almeida. Fight fans, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly. Mr. Mustache, MMA News out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.